was under 1,000 people leaving the ranks.
I just got to end it by saying, Mr. President, you showed more leadership in some of the most critical moments than I've ever seen before. Thank you.
Under 1,000 people leaving the ranks of the city this plan.
We see that love of a city that I know is mirrored over there. But a love can't be an irresponsible love. It can't be an easy love where we say, we'll do whatever, even if that's going to hurt you more next year and the year after, because it feels easy now. Because there are those who are portrayed, or maybe even self-described, as I'm a champion of labor. Somebody else who says, I'm a fiscal conservative. What I heard colleagues in that room was that there wasn't one champion of labor who wasn't also a fiscal conservative. And that there wasn't a fiscal conservative at the end of the day that wasn't pro-worker. And I want you all to hear that. Because if you paint people into a corner, I was with Mr. Smith. He was, that first night we started going through the numbers to make sure we were all dealing with the same reality. He stayed up past midnight, City Hall East, going over those numbers with a handful of people. And when Mr. Alarcon and Mr. Koretz were there watching the initial discussions and then the negotiations, and when Mr. Park stood up and made the motion to move this forward just now, and when each one of these members did something to keep us on track, when Mr. Wesson in that back room talked sense into all of us and said, come on, we've got business to do here. There's plenty that even we can disagree about, but let's keep focused. When Ms. Hahn would not yield on points to make sure that it was good with everybody in labor and then was able to keep that unanimous vote together. I don't want to presage what will happen, but if we get a unanimous vote, it's because everybody shares those values as deeply. All 14 members of this city.
The ranks of the city, this plan has significantly.
Let me conclude with these gentlemen and their staffs. Because Jerry Miller said, we've done a 180, and it's not something we normally do. They did not do a 180 because of political pressure. Because all of you who know all of us, there isn't one political viewpoint here. Who would they listen to? Would it be the people saying we can't afford to do this, or do this even though we might not be able to afford it? You did it because you brought yourselves around, because you've always been the stewards. You for a shorter time, obviously, Mr. Santana, and Jerry working for all of us. We have a unanimous vote today because you have faith in this. Not that it's perfect, not that it's easy, not that it is fraught, not fraught with other things, but it is less fraught with the peril than where we started this week. A reserve fund boosted for our fiscal strength. Layoffs prevented for our city workers and their families, which doesn't just help city workers, but our local economy as well. A deeper structural savings for us when 2,400 people instead of 926 people potentially move off the payroll. 926 forced off, 2,400 who volunteer to get off. The additional things that we've talked about with labor that we can't and won't detail here today, no matter how hard people push us because we respect the confidentiality, but that these folks, not us, these folks say are real dollars. And the most fiscally conservative folks around here can live with that because of that word. When we have a city now that is able to face the future with greater control, with the sort of reopeners and triggers and responsibility that is shared, this is where we start tomorrow, folks, and this is where I'll end. Because we've got a huge pension problem we face in coming years. It isn't a one-year issue at all. You know the bubble is coming, and we want you all to have pensions that you can support yourselves and your families with. We have a deficit that doesn't go away next year. And when 2,400 people leave the city, guess what? There are less services. And we all have to be smart about how we do provide services, what our core services are. But I'd rather have a workforce of tens of thousands of motivated workers than a workforce that is depressed and says, I don't want to come to work, and nobody cares about me, and they're not being fiscally responsible. So I will... So as I second... Thank you. As I seconded Mr. Park's motion, let me make the final actions, and then let's hear from the public themselves.
And then let me ask you, there was a lot of discussion as to what was basically referred to you on our last council agenda and what are some of the differences as what we're basically discussing today? And the difference is number, the old plan, I believe, was under 1,000 people leaving the ranks of the city. This plan has significantly more. Can you touch on some of those?